Republicans claim they're for less government, but when it comes to women, they're passing laws against women's rights in states they control by shutting down family planning clinics, passing anti-abortion laws, and laws which would require women seeking an abortion to submit to invasive ultrasound examinations. Michigan Republicans passed a radical law banning insurance companies from covering abortions to terminate a pregnancy, even including those resulting from incest or rape. U.S. House of Representative Republicans recently voted in favor of defunding family planning clinics nationwide. Republicans want to make abortions completely illegal, even in cases of incest or rape.
We don't want a country where abortion is simply outlawed. We want a country where it isn't even considered.
You say you want to ban it. What's that mean?
I am pro-life, yes.
What is ban? How do you ban abortion? How do you actually do it?
Well, you know, you'll go back to a position like they had where people will perhaps go to illegal places.
Yeah.
But you have to ban it.
Do you believe in punishment for abortion? Yes or no, as a principle?
The answer is that there has to be some form of punishment.
For the woman?
Yeah, there has to be some form.
10 cents, 10 years,
I don't know. That I don't know. That
well, why
I don't
not?
know. I don't know.
You take positions and everything else.
I do take positions and everything else. It's a very complicated position.
You tell me what the law should be. Just tell me what the law should be. You said you're pro-life.
I am pro-life.
What's that mean?
With exceptions. I am pro-life. I have not determined what the punishment would be.
Why not?
Because I haven't determined it.
By saying you're pro-life, you mean you want to ban abortion. How do you ban abortion without some kind of sanction? Then you get into that very tricky question of a sanction. A fine on human life, which you call murder.
It'll have to be determined.
A fine of imprisonment for a young woman who finds herself pregnant.
It will have to be determined.
Donald Trump, several hours later, tried to take that back. He put out a statement saying he didn't mean that women should be punished for getting an abortion, even though that is what he said. He now said he wants doctors to be punished, not women themselves who seek abortions. Now, Ted Cruz, the guy who's got the convicted abortion doctor stalker on his Faith Leaders for Cruz list. And he's got the guy who says that women who have abortion are murderers and contract killers and should be treated as such. He's got him as a co-chair of his Pro-Life for Cruz group. Ted Cruz, that candidate, wasted no time in criticizing Donald Trump for Mr. Trump's remarks to Chris Matthews yesterday. Ted Cruz, after those remarks, put out a statement saying this, quote, "Of course, we shouldn't be talking about punishing women. We should affirm their dignity and the incredible gift they have to bring life into the world." Of course, we shouldn't be talking about punishing women. We shouldn't be talking about that. Ted Cruz is right that the anti-abortion movement in general has learned to stop talking about that. They don't like to talk about that. They like to say that they'll never talk about that. But it is, if we're being honest here, an unavoidable consequence of what it would mean if they get their way. What it would mean if they get their way, which means what it would mean if they make abortion illegal. That is what the anti-abortion movement wants to do. And yes, the anti-abortion movement has mostly learned to stop talking about punishing women, mostly. But not all of them have.
It's interesting what Trump says. It shocks people, but at the same time, the old adage was that abortion was illegal, that it was murder. And consequently, if it's illegal and it's murder, then there had to be some penalty attached to it. If somebody says abortion is murder, then what do you do to somebody who commits murder? I mean, so it's a dilemma that people have been wrestling with, and I'm certainly not going to get into it.
Too late. You just got into it. The media narrative and the political narrative that come up in the last 24 hours in response to what Donald Trump said yesterday about abortion and what it means to be anti-abortion, what it means to want to ban abortion in this country. It is so out of touch and so facile right now, it is mind-bending. I mean, reporting on what the anti-abortion movement is, reporting on that movement's aims, reporting on what it means to be a pro-life politician doesn't just mean writing down what they want you to say about them. You don't have to use the antiseptic language and chosen phrases they choose to use themselves when they describe their own position. You don't have to talk about them only the way they like to be talked about. When you talk about them in terms of their actual policy goals in an objective way, you very quickly realize that what Donald Trump did yesterday, it may be viewed as a gaffe, but it wasn't a gaffe. Right? He just used blunter language than the anti-abortion movement likes to use in public. I mean, let's just get real about this for a second. If you are pro-life, that means you don't think a woman has a right to have an abortion if she wants one. If you're pro-life, you mean that that means you think there isn't a right to get an abortion. It means you are anti-abortion. If you're anti-abortion, it doesn't just mean that you don't get an abortion in your own life. It means that you believe nobody else should be able to get an abortion either. When a politician says that he or she is pro-life and will govern as such, what that means is that they would like abortion to be outlawed. It means they want the United States of America to be a country in which getting an abortion is a crime. If getting an abortion is a crime, that means anybody who gets an abortion is a criminal. Follow me here. That is what Chris Matthews was getting at with Donald Trump. And this is what he admitted to that has so upset everybody that he said it out loud. But it's true. If we become a pro-life country where abortion is illegal, then every time any woman becomes pregnant in the United States, she will face a government mandate which says that she must bring that pregnancy to term and she must give birth by order of the government. The government will use the criminal law to monitor every pregnancy in this country and to force every woman in America who gets pregnant to take that pregnancy to term and give birth, even if it is against her will. That's what it means in brass tacks. It means if you're a woman in America and we become a pro-life country because the anti-abortion side wins, that means your pregnancy test is potentially criminal evidence. If you have a miscarriage, God forbid, every physical aspect of your miscarriage is potentially criminal evidence. The site of your miscarriage is potentially going to be treated and investigated as a crime scene. In a pro-life country, if the government knows you to be pregnant and you do not give birth 9 months later, that will be a matter for the police to investigate. Donald Trump says he is pro-life. The Republican Party has generally viewed him as a squish on the subject, as not hardline enough on abortion. As an example of how he's not hardline enough, in contrast, Ted Cruz is not only anti-abortion, he is anti-abortion in every instance. Under a President Ted Cruz, he would go further than Donald Trump and impose the same criminal regime, not just on women broadly, but on specifically women who became pregnant because they were raped or because they were the victim of incest. So some, God forbid, right? Some 13-year-old girl somewhere in America gets raped by her evil uncle and gets impregnated. Under a Ted Cruz presidency, if he gets his way, that 13-year-old girl's pregnancy would become a matter for the state, the government, to monitor. And the criminal law would be used to force that 13-year-old girl to bring that pregnancy to term. And it would force her to give birth to her rapist's child against her will under penalty of criminal law. So it sort of feels like a parallel universe, right? In which these comments by Donald Trump yesterday are seen as somehow outrageous, while Ted Cruz is the reasonable one.
There has to be some form of punishment.
For the woman?
Yeah, there has to be some form.
10 cents, 10 years.
I don't know. That I don't know.
The anti-abortion movement in this country does not like to talk about that part of what their agenda would mean for our country. The anti-abortion movement in this country does not like any public reminders of the links between their movement and the part of their movement that shoots doctors and says it's justified to do so. But presidential candidate Ted Cruz has not been particularly diligent about keeping a bright line between his own anti-abortion politics, his own anti-abortion campaign, and the radical, violent anti-abortion politics that have brought us the Operation Save America and Operation Rescues of this world. His opponent, Republican presidential frontrunner Donald Trump, he has not been particularly good at keeping a bright line between what he wants to be seen as mainstream anti-abortion Republican politics and the politically awkward but true fact of what it would mean for American women if the Republicans get their way, the anti-abortion movement gets their way, and they succeed in making abortion a crime and every American woman who seeks one into a criminal. So just a note to the national media and to the Beltway media on this subject. I know everybody's all over Donald Trump on this. What will this mean for his campaign? But covering a story like this does not mean just writing down what people want you to say about them in the terms they want you to use. And the idea that there is any distance at all between what Donald Trump said yesterday on this subject and the aims of the anti-abortion movement in this country, that is a fallacy and one that no responsible person should repeat.